Hey guys, tonight we step straight into a twilight world that smells faintly of coal smoke, lavender polish, and freshly struck matches. You're in an Edwardian parlor around the year 1905, and the room is glowing with the soft amber light of gas jets. Their hiss is steady, almost soothing, except for that one lamp that flickers like it's thinking of exploding. Across the ceiling, the wallpaper shimmers with gilded swirls, and you catch the glint of something new, an electric bulb, dangling experimentally beside the gaslight, half promise, half threat. You probably wouldn't survive a week here without coughing up soot, but this is where modern comfort begins. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the evening mist of Edwardian London, your boots clicking on slick cobblestones. Above you, the gas lamps line the street like glowing pearls strung through fog. The air smells of wet horsehair, bread from a distant bakery, and that metallic tang of city damp. Inside homes, the same soft yellow light flickers behind lace curtains. It's cozy, familiar, and already doomed. Electricity is coming. You push open a heavy door into a modest townhouse. The first thing you notice is warmth, not from a fire, but from the glow of gas brackets mounted neatly along the walls. The housekeeper moves about with the precision of someone used to dodging open flames and fragile mantles. Gaslight is cheap, reliable, and dangerous. Every evening ritual includes a bit of hazard, matches, soot, and the possibility of suffocation if the flame sputters out. Still, for Edwardians, this was luxury. Before gas, people fumbled with candles and oil lamps, smoky things that dripped wax onto carpets and filled rooms with fumes. Gaslight was progress, visible and bright, like the heartbeat of the age. But around 1880, something quieter began to hum in the shadows: electric current. At first, only the wealthiest homes could afford it. The installation looked more like an experiment than a utility. Wires strung awkwardly across ceilings, glass bulbs that burned out fast, and switches that occasionally zapped their users. Historians still argue whether early adopters were brave or foolish. You can picture it: a well-to-do gentleman showing off his new electric chandelier at dinner, only for the fuse to blow and plunge everyone into scandalous darkness. Yet even with the hazards, the allure was irresistible. Electricity meant control. No more striking matches, no smoke, no gas leaks that left families dizzy and pale. You could, in theory, light your whole house with the press of a button. The Edwardians adored buttons, symbols of modern mastery. You lean closer to one of those early bulbs. Its filament glows orange, trembling with the energy of the new century. It's not quite as warm as gaslight. It's whiter, harsher, almost clinical. Some people found it unsettling. Writers complained that electric light made everyone look ill, like ghosts at supper. But progress never asked permission to be flattering. In London, electric companies popped up like mushrooms after rain, some powering just a handful of streets, others promising grand citywide grids. It was chaos, a spaghetti tangle of competing voltages and systems. Plug into the wrong one, and your new lamp might explode like a miniature cannon. The Board of Trade eventually had to step in and impose some order, but not before countless middle-class families discovered that upgrading their home could mean setting it on fire. One curious tidbit: early electric lighting was often sold as healthier. Advertisements claimed it purified the air, unlike gaslight, which supposedly consumed the room's oxygen. You can almost hear the Edwardian salesman's patter: "Madam, this lamp not only brightens your parlor, it invigorates the lungs." The truth was murkier. The first bulbs often buzzed, stank faintly of ozone, and occasionally burst. Healthier, maybe not, but undeniably cleaner. No soot on the curtains, no ash on the wallpaper. You wander upstairs, the floorboards creaking beneath you. A maid passes, balancing a tray. She eyes the electric switch warily. Servants hated the stuff at first. It upset their routines. Gaslight they understood. You lit it, you trimmed it, you cleaned the mantles. Electricity was invisible and unpredictable. One wrong touch, and as one London maid put it, you were struck by heaven's fire. Still, progress trickled down the social ladder. By the 1910s, even modest suburban houses began boasting electric light in every room. Imagine the thrill of that promise. The idea that darkness itself could be banished at will. In many ways, the electric switch was the century's most potent symbol of control. Flick light, flick dark, power in your fingertips. You can sense why it enchanted Edwardian minds. And yet, not everyone wanted to let go of gaslight. Many homes clung to both, hybrid creatures of the age, gas for the parlor's warmth, electricity for the hall's crisp gleam. There was something romantic about the yellow glow that electric white could never quite replace. Even today, when you walk through old neighborhoods and see those vintage lamps burning, you can feel the ghost of that debate: warmth versus clarity, nostalgia versus innovation. You pause by the window. Outside, night presses against the glass, but your reflection glows, half lit by gas, half by electric bulb. It's as if you stand between two centuries, one foot in the sooty Victorian past, the other in the bright, buzzing future. The electric revolution doesn't roar in with fanfare. It hums softly, settling into homes, rewiring habits, reshaping comfort itself. And there's something else electric light changes: time. When you can light your room at will, the day no longer ends at dusk. Families linger awake, reading, sewing, talking. Shops stay open later, factories run longer, cities never sleep. It's the birth of the 24-hour mindset, the idea that productivity need not obey the sun. That's a gift and a curse you still live with. Some Edwardian scientists even speculated that electric light might alter human biology, that sleeping patterns would change forever. Historians still argue whether this marks the true start of modern insomnia. The evidence? Well, you're here, listening to a bedtime history video instead of being asleep, so maybe they were onto something. You wander into the kitchen, noticing a single naked bulb swaying from a cord. The housekeeper mutters that it's ugly but useful. That sums up much of Edwardian progress: practical, disruptive, and slightly ungainly. But this ugly bulb is a seed. From here, electrical imagination explodes outward. Kettles, heaters, irons, fans, eventually radios and refrigerators. Comfort becomes mechanized, humming, and eventually taken for granted. For now, though, the world is still half shadow, half spark. The flicker of transition fills every room. You take one last look at the gas mantle, glowing like a fading star, and at the electric bulb beside it, white and unwavering. The old world sighs, the new one hums. Outside, the lamplighter makes his evening rounds, taper pole raised. He pauses beneath your window, squints at the electric gleam spilling through the curtains, and shakes his head. Progress, he mutters, isn't good for everyone's job. Then he moves on, lighting one last lamp before vanishing into the fog. The bulb hums faintly, a mechanical lullaby. You close your eyes and imagine the countless rooms awakening across the city, bright as promise, fragile as invention. The dawn of domestic comfort has begun, not with sunrise, but with the steady glow of captured lightning. You pad softly down a hallway lined with framed lithographs and the faint perfume of carbolic soap. Beneath your feet, a quiet miracle hums, pipes, valves, unseen water in motion. The Edwardians called it sanitary science, but you'd call it survival. In an age when a bad drain could wipe out a whole street with cholera, The arrival of indoor plumbing wasn't just convenience, it was salvation. In the Victorian decades before this, houses stank. Privies overflowed, cesspits leaked, and sewage trickled through gutters disguised by perfume and denial. London, Great Stink of 1858 had already forced Parliament to flee Westminster, gagging behind handkerchiefs as the Thames fumed with rot. By the early 1900s, though, the Edwardians had inherited something extraordinary, a city beginning to breathe again. Joseph Bazalgette's grand sewers were in place, and water companies piped liquid purity into the homes of the rising middle class. You step into a bathroom, a proper one, not a tin tub in the kitchen. Porcelain gleams like ivory, tiles glisten in pale sea green, and the air smells faintly of soap and warm steam. You reach for the brass tap, it squeaks, sputters, and releases a gush of clear water. Not river brown, not bucket carried. Clean, pressurized, obedient. It feels like civilization itself has condensed into a single twist of the wrist. Historians still argue whether this was the moment when home became a sanctuary rather than a survival shelter. Some say it was the gaslight, others the indoor lavatory. Either way, you can't overstate the intimacy of it. The human body meeting modern infrastructure, privately, daily. You lift your gaze to a small enamel sign above the basin. It reads "Waste not," a reminder that this luxury was fragile. Water mains were unreliable, pumps froze, pipes burst. Early bathrooms were temperamental divas. You never quite knew whether to expect a refreshing wash or a freezing ambush. Hot water especially was a gamble. Before reliable boilers, it came from kettles and patience. So when Edwardian engineers devised gas-powered heaters, households rejoiced. The first time you could draw a hot bath without boiling buckets in the scullery. That was domestic ecstasy. The bath itself, though, was still an adventure. You imagine sinking into steaming water, sighing as grime and fatigue melt away, until you remember that Edwardian plumbing didn't quite trust itself yet. Temperatures wavered, taps rattled, and pipes moaned like mournful ghosts. Servants often hovered nearby, armed with towels and terror, because scalding accidents were alarmingly common. The comfort of modern life was still a delicate experiment. Downstairs, the kitchen tells its own story. You see a heavy zinc sink with a single cold tap, flanked by scrubbed wooden counters. Housewives learned to worship soap flakes and elbow grease, but when hot water arrived via the new copper cylinder boilers, a whole domestic rhythm shifted. Laundry day shrank from agony to endurance. Suddenly, you could soak, rinse, and scrub without hauling buckets upstairs. You could wash a floor in half the time. Hygiene became not just a moral duty, but a point of pride. There's a joke that Edwardians were obsessed with cleanliness next to godliness. It's not far off. Advertisers sold hygiene as both status and salvation. Posters promised that good drains made good citizens. Plumbing catalogs, surprisingly poetic, spoke of the silent messengers of health. One plumber's brochure even compared water pipes to human arteries, a home's vital circulatory system. The analogy caught on, and suddenly your house wasn't a building. It was a body that needed maintenance. You pause to listen. Faint drips, the low gurgle of water finding its path. There's a rhythm to it, like a heartbeat beneath the floor. The idea that comfort could be mechanical, predictable, engineered, was intoxicating. But the Edwardians were nothing if not contradictory. While city homes embraced porcelain and polished brass, rural cottages still made do with hand pumps and outhouses. The two nations' problem, rich and poor, clean and unclean, remained painfully visible. Even as Londoners bathed in clawfoot tubs, miners' families in Yorkshire drew water from wells shared with livestock. Historians still argue whether sanitation reform truly democratized health, or merely gilded the lives of those who could afford it. Still, there's no denying the transformation of daily ritual. The act of washing became an emblem of progress. You imagine an Edwardian morning, the slap of cold water in a basin, the mirror fogging, the faint hum of the cistern filling. Before the invention of electric shavers or even reliable mirrors, cleanliness was manual, deliberate, almost ceremonial. And for women, it was liberation in disguise. Running water meant less time hauling, heating, waiting. It meant minutes, sometimes hours, returned to their own control. Quirky tidbit: one popular early 20th century gadget was the spray bath helmet. Picture a brass globe that you lower over your head, attached to a water pipe that misted your scalp like rain. It promised complete cleansing of the pores. In reality, it mostly promised concussions. But that's Edwardian optimism for you. If it sprays, hums, or steams, it must be progress. You lean over the tub and watch the ripples. The reflection shimmers like liquid glass. Somewhere in the city, a plumber wipes his brow and mutters that these fancy fixtures are the future. He's right, though he won't live to see shower stalls with thermostatic valves or motion-sensing taps. The dream of effortless comfort starts here, in rooms tiled like temples to purity. Outside, the streets echo with the sound of progress too. Hydrants appear at corners, fountains bubble in public squares, and newspapers brag that typhoid deaths have fallen. Clean water is invisible until it's gone, but for Edwardians, it was the quiet revolution beneath their feet. As you wander back through the house, the pipes clink softly in the walls, cooling after use. There's something soothing about it, this hidden network that sustains life yet rarely demands attention. You imagine being one of the first homeowners to trust it completely, to flush and forget. That, right there, is the definition of comfort, when technology becomes so reliable you stop noticing it. In a bedroom upstairs, a jug and basin still sit on the dresser, relics of habit. The lady of the house probably insists on using them just in case. Change creeps slowly, even when it's bubbling through your walls. You can almost hear the conversation at breakfast. Running water, indeed. Next, they'll have mechanical servants bringing the tea. Spoiler, they almost do. The window fogs from the heat of the bath below. You trace a line through the condensation and think about the simple miracle of it. Warm water on demand, cleanliness without labor, the end of freezing dawn scrubbing. The Edwardian dream wasn't just about luxury. It was about reclaiming time, privacy, and dignity. And yet, even this comfort carried shadows. New plumbing brought new problems: lead poisoning from pipes, mold from trapped steam, and a strange anxiety about germs. As knowledge of bacteria spread, so did paranoia. Housewives boiled everything. Doctors preached the gospel of sterilization. The bathroom became both sanctuary and laboratory. You listen to the gurgle fade, the final sigh of the pipes settling. The floorboards creak, and for a moment you can almost feel the pulse of the modern world awakening beneath you. The same quiet heartbeat runs through your own walls today, unnoticed. Every hiss of a shower, every turn of a tap, echoes this age of transition, when water stopped being fetched and started being summoned. Comfort, after all, isn't born in grand inventions. It seeps, one pipe at a time, into the spaces where you least expect it. You wander downstairs again toward the scullery, a territory of clangs, scrapes, and soap bubbles. The scent hits you first: warm starch, damp linen, and the faint singe of iron on cotton. It's laundry day, which in an Edwardian home is less a task and more a battle. You can almost hear the servants sigh. And yet something is changing here too, an invasion of shiny, noisy machines promising to ease the endless drudgery. They call them labor-saving devices. You're about to find out just how literal that claim is. You duck beneath a drying rack strung with nightshirts and watch a maid crank what looks like a cross between a mangle and a submarine. The early washing machine. It's powered by sheer human misery and, if you're lucky, a small gas motor. The contraption wheezes, clunks, and threatens to walk across the floor with every rotation. Still, it's better than the old way, scrubbing until your knuckles bled. The Edwardian era worshipped invention. Every household gadget was hailed as a triumph of science, a mechanical servant that would free woman from toil. Historians still argue whether these machines truly liberated anyone or just shifted the exhaustion into new forms, repairing, maintaining, paying installments. But optimism was everywhere. The very sound of gears turning was like a hymn to progress. The housemaid's pride was a new gadget called the housemaid's friend. Picture a primitive vacuum cleaner, part carpet sweeper, part exercise regime. You push it, it whirs, and sometimes it sucks up dust instead of spitting it back out. The first versions were enormous, powered by hand pumps or even foot treadles. Later models used early electric motors, so loud they made the cat evacuate the room. Quirky fact: one 1901 patent described a vacuum that required two people, one to aim the hose and another to operate the bellows in another room, preferably a husband. You can guess how long that partnership lasted. You lean against the doorframe, watching the maid wrestle with the new Thor electric washer, introduced around 1908. It's basically a metal drum with paddles, run by a small motor and boundless hope. It sloshes and thrashes like a mechanical whale, threatening to leap from its stand. The water smells of soap flakes and optimism. Nearby, the cook eyes her own innovation, a hand-cranked food chopper. She mutters that progress just means more things to clean afterward. You can't blame her. Every gadget came with its own instruction booklet, spare parts, and smug advertisements showing perfect women in spotless aprons. The real kitchens, steamy, noisy, alive with complaints, and laughter too. Because when something did work, even briefly, it felt like magic. Historians still argue whether the rise of mechanical domesticity marks the start of feminism or its clever detour. On one hand, devices like washing machines and vacuums reduced physical strain and gave women more time. On the other, society promptly expected even higher standards of cleanliness. What used to be good enough was suddenly lazy. It's the same paradox you live with today. The more convenience you have, the more perfection people expect. You kneel to examine an early electric iron, heavy, dangerous, and faintly heroic. Before electricity, ironing involved heating flat irons on stoves, testing them on paper or one's own skin if unlucky, and praying the temperature was right. The electric version, arriving around 1909, changed everything. For the first time, you could maintain steady heat. That meant crisp collars, smooth linens, and a surprising rise in middle-class smugness. But not all progress was elegant. Consider the automatic wringer, a device meant to squeeze water from laundry. If you fed it too quickly, it tried to eat your shirt, and sometimes your hand. Newspapers carried grim little stories of maids injured by their own washing machines. The line between convenience and chaos was paper-thin. Still, the rhythm of work changed. You can almost hear the mechanical heartbeat of a house in motion. The hum of a vacuum, the chug of a washer, the click of the iron on fabric. This was the domestic soundtrack of modernity. In homes where servants were scarce or expensive, these machines were salvation. In bigger houses, they were status symbols, proof that your home was as up-to-date as your politics. You find yourself standing near the back door, watching laundry flap like white flags of surrender in the garden breeze. The sun glints on a shiny metal clothesline pulley, another small wonder. Instead of trudging through mud, you could hang and reel from the stoop, a domestic captain at your post. These details sound small, but comfort is often made of small revolutions. Let's not forget cleaning itself, a ritual elevated to obsession. The Edwardian middle class feared dust like a personal insult. It symbolized neglect, moral decay, and worst of all, social embarrassment. hence the booming market for polishes, disinfectants, and gadgets. Some of them were borderline ridiculous. Static dusters that claimed to attract dirt as a magnet draws iron, or the ozonator, which pumped electrified air into rooms to kill germs. One advertisement promised it would make the home smell of health. Another admitted it might also slightly singe curtains. Minor detail. You trace your fingers across a gleaming copper pot, catching your reflection in its curve. The kitchen, once a grimy workspace, starts to shine literally. Surfaces become smoother, whiter, easier to clean. Linoleum flooring appears, wiping away centuries of splinters and spills. Easy to clean becomes a mantra of modern comfort. Even aesthetics start to follow hygiene. Bright light, pale colors, open shelves. The Edwardian home begins to look suspiciously like a laboratory of cleanliness. In the parlor, the mistress of the house sits with a mail-order catalog open on her lap. Page after page of gadgets, mops with detachable heads, rotary brushes, electric fans. She dreams of a future where everything hums quietly and nothing drips or burns. But her husband, peering over the paper, mutters that the electric bill will be ruinous. He's right, it was. Electricity in 1905 cost a small fortune, but no one ever sold progress on price. They sold it on wonder. A soft mechanical rattle interrupts your thoughts. The vacuum cleaner again, its hose snaking across the carpet like a tame python. The maid gives a wry smile. It frightens the dog, she says, but at least it eats the dust. You can almost hear her pride. Beneath the fatigue, there's genuine awe. This strange machine, however imperfect, promises a gentler future. Quirky historical side note. Some inventors tried to market water-powered vacuum cleaners that hooked directly to a home's plumbing. They promised suction without smoke or sparks. In reality, they flooded kitchens. One newspaper joked that these devices cleaned everything, including the basement. You glance around the kitchen one more time. Every surface seems to hum faintly with potential. These early inventions, crude as they were, planted the idea that home life could evolve. That progress wasn't only for factories and laboratories, but for parlors and pantries. It was the democratization of ingenuity, though the democracy part still had a way to go. The pipes in the wall murmur again, leftovers from your last visit. Above them now runs a tangle of wires feeding electricity to machines that buzz like restless insects. You can almost feel the house waking up, stretching its circuits, learning to help. A final chuckle from history. One Edwardian etiquette guide advised that when demonstrating a new household gadget to guests, the hostess should express modest wonder rather than triumph. Apparently, showing too much excitement about your vacuum was considered vulgar. You imagine someone today trying that line on social media. Yeah, good luck with modest wonder. You step back toward the parlor, brushing soap bubbles from your sleeve. The hum fades behind you, replaced by the ticking of a clock. For all its noise and fumbling, this was the true beginning of the modern household. The moment when comfort stopped being a luxury and started being engineered. The machines are crude, but the idea is electric, that every domestic task can somehow be conquered. And as you listen, you realize the house itself has started to sing, a low, mechanical lullaby of progress. You follow the sound of a gentle pop and a hiss, like someone's lit a fuse somewhere nearby. It's breakfast time now, and the Edwardian kitchen is waking up in its own peculiar symphony. The gurgle of a kettle, the clang of crockery, and that faint, toasty aroma that makes your stomach grumble even though you technically don't exist in this story. Welcome to the dawn of convenience cuisine, or as it was first known, scientific cookery. The kitchen is a laboratory now. Every corner bristles with polished metal, new levers, and an optimism that smells faintly of burnt toast. On the counter sits an object that seems almost laughably simple to you but was pure wizardry to them. the electric toaster. Two bare wires inside a metal frame, glowing like miniature suns, and a handle that looks just trustworthy enough not to kill you. You press it down, the bread sizzles, and for the first time in human history, breakfast doesn't depend on fire. Before this, toast was made in ways that now sound vaguely medieval. People held bread on forks near open flames, turning it by hand, often setting it on fire, or their cuffs. A contraption called a toasting fork was popular, but it was basically just a longer way to get burned. The electric toaster was liberation through breakfast. Still, it wasn't automatic. You had to watch it carefully. Early toasters only toasted one side at a time. You had to flip the bread manually, which meant leaning over a live current and praying for good reflexes. One wrong move, and your modern marvel became a weapon of mild electrocution. Historians still argue whether this counts as the first interactive kitchen appliance. Across the room, another miracle is humming, the electric kettle. Steam curls upward, soft and ghostly, carrying that familiar scent of tea leaves and tin. The kettle looks more like a polished diving helmet than anything you'd use to make a cuppa, but it's beautiful in its brass absurdity. It heats water faster than any stove and without smoke, without waiting, without soot. That simple act, instant heat, was revolutionary. You hear the maid sigh with relief. Before electric kettles and gas stoves, tea making was a chore. Hauling coal, lighting matches, nursing a temperamental flame. The gas range, which had started appearing in homes by the late 1800s, had already changed that rhythm, giving cooks control over temperature for the first time. No more guessing if your stew was simmering or threatening mutiny. By the Edwardian era, the gas cooker was the center of the modern kitchen, cleaner, faster, and oddly futuristic. You hover near the stove, feeling its steady heat. It hisses softly, a tamed dragon. You can imagine how thrilling it must have felt. Fire on demand, precision at your fingertips. Housewives once kept charts detailing which gas mark corresponded to gentle simmer or crisp roast. They learned to trust dials instead of instincts, a subtle but profound shift. The art of cooking became an experiment in control. On the table sits a box of Kellogg's Corn Flakes, imported from America. Yes, the Edwardians loved their gadgets, but they also adored anything that promised efficiency, even in food. Breakfast cereals were the first convenience food, marketed with the same tone as an appliance, clean, modern, moral. Eaten without the labor of cooking, one ad proclaimed proudly. You can almost hear Edwardian mothers sighing with relief, and fathers complaining that porridge built character. But not everyone welcomed these changes. Cooks in grand houses felt their craft was being mechanized. The skill of managing coal fires and guessing heat was part of their identity. Now, with gas and electricity, even an amateur could cook a decent meal. Progress, as always, threatened pride. One chef in 1907 famously declared that gas stoves rob food of its soul. You might call that dramatic. He called it job security. You take a seat at the breakfast table. The silver gleams, the teapot steams, and someone opens a newspaper whose pages smell faintly of ink and optimism. Headlines about new inventions abound: airships, moving pictures, and wireless telegrams. But tucked between them are ads for household marvels. The gas-fired percolator coffee in 3 minutes. Or the Eclipse bread toaster science for the breakfast table. It's tempting to laugh, but for Edwardians, this was serious cultural revolution. Breakfast was no longer a slow ritual chained to fire and ash. It was an act of modernity, a declaration that your home was connected, literally, to the invisible forces of progress humming through wires and pipes. You lift the slice of toast. It's golden on one side, pale on the other, slightly uneven imperfection that feels honest. The butter melts in tiny rivers. You take a bite, and even though you can't actually taste it, the crunch echoes through time. That sound, the first mechanical toast, was the start of the modern morning. And then there's refrigeration, or rather its awkward Edwardian cousin. True electric fridges were rare, but iceboxes ruled the kitchen. Servants or delivery boys hauled blocks of ice from the market, slotting them into insulated cabinets lined with zinc. The result was cool, not cold, and often smelled faintly of fish, but it kept milk from souring for at least a day or two. It was a fragile truce with decay. Quirky tidbit: one London company offered night ice delivery, promising discreet service for those embarrassed to admit they didn't yet own an electric cooler. The stigma of being behind the times was real, even when the times involved a man with a dripping block of frozen river water on his back. You can sense the kitchen's pulse quicken. Every gadget hums with purpose. Even the clock seems to tick more efficiently, keeping pace with this new tempo of living. Breakfast, once a sleepy ritual of coals and clatter, becomes smooth, orchestrated, almost rhythmic. You can imagine the lady of the house boasting to her friends, "We breakfast at 8 sharp, toast by electricity, tea by gas, and the papers arrive before the eggs are cool." It sounds like status disguised as punctuality, but it's also the thrill of control. Historians still argue whether this mechanization of meals made families closer or colder. The dining table was once a place of shared labor, passing dishes, tending the fire, chatting while you cooked. Now, with switches and appliances, breakfast became efficient, quiet, solitary. Some loved it, others missed the chaos. Still, you can't deny the beauty of it. The rhythm, the clean lines, the shimmer of polished enamel. The Edwardian kitchen is the ancestor of your own modern one. Every hum of your toaster, every click of your kettle, every sigh of your fridge carries echoes of this age of wonder. You notice something sweet amid the machinery, the human touch that refuses to vanish. A child sits at the table, swinging their legs, spreading jam on toast. The maid sneaks a second cup of tea. The cook wipes her hands on her apron and hums a tune from the wireless. Progress hums, but life hums louder. Outside, the sun climbs over slate rooftops. Light glints off glass milk bottles on the step. Somewhere in the street, a cart rattles past, its wheels clattering against cobblestones, delivering coal to a neighbor still cooking the old way. Inside your house, though, warmth, light, and breakfast arrive by the flick of a switch. The electric age doesn't begin with factories or telegraphs. It begins here, with toast. Because once a home could make breakfast without fire, the world itself began to feel manageable. You finish your imaginary meal, push back your chair, and smile. The day awaits, warmed, fed, and faintly buzzing with innovation. You leave the warmth of the breakfast room and step into a different kind of energy. The streets hum. It's late morning now, and Edwardian London, or any growing city of 1905, feels like it's holding its breath between centuries. The world outside smells of coal smoke, horse dung, hot metal, and ambition. The air itself trembles with invention. Horses still outnumber engines, but the ratio is shifting. You can hear the rhythmic clop of hooves beside the high-pitched whir of a motor car, an ungainly beast that looks half carriage, half mechanical insect. Its brass fittings flash in the pale sun. Drivers wear goggles and expressions of deep concentration, as though piloting a contraption barely contained by logic. Children stop to stare. Old men shake their heads. And somewhere in between, progress grins with oily teeth. A tram rattles past, its trolley poles sparking faintly as it touches the overhead wire. The passengers inside are a collage of the era, clerks in bowler hats, maids with baskets, ladies clutching copies of the ladies' pictorial. Electric trams were new enough to feel like miracles, old enough to be complained about. "The noise," said one letter to the Times, is fit to drive a saint to drink, but few could deny the convenience. Where once you'd slog through mud and manure, now you glided, clean, cheap, on schedule. Progress, however, always carried a toll ticket. Horses were losing their kingdom, blacksmiths grumbled, stable boys looked for work. The streets grew noisier, faster, less personal. Yet for many Edwardians, the thrill outweighed the loss. Imagine living in a time when the world itself seemed to pick up speed, when every new invention was not just a gadget but a glimpse of the future. As you walk, posters shout their promises from brick walls. Edison's marvelous phonograph, music captured. One proclaims beside a hand-drawn trumpet. Another advertises Will's cigarettes, now with collector cards of motor cars and aeroplanes. A century before social media, Edwardians already had their collectible obsessions. You follow a faint melody drifting from a shop window. It's a phonograph, one of the newer cylinder models, its brass horn gleaming like sunlight poured into metal. The shopkeeper beams with pride. For a few pence, anyone can step inside and hear the latest waltz or a comic monologue. The sound is tinny but magical, as if the air itself has learned to remember. People gather, listening in awe. A young woman clutches her hat as if afraid the music might lift her away. An old man murmurs, "So that's her voice preserved." You realize how radical this must have felt. That sound, once gone forever, could now be replayed. The phonograph was the first ghost maker of the modern world. Inside, the shelves glisten with cylindrical brown wax. Each one holds a few minutes of captured time, voices, laughter, news, novelty songs. The owner shows off his pride, a recording of the new king's coronation speech. "Listen," he says, dropping the needle. A crackle, a hiss, and then clear as brass, a royal voice declaring loyalty, empire, progress. The crowd applauds a piece of sound. You step back outside into the crisp air. A camera flash goes off down the street, startling a horse. The photographer adjusts his tripod, head shrouded under a dark cloth. His subject is a young couple, stiff with nerves but glowing with pride. "Hold still," he says. "Think of something pleasant." They do. For a second, time pauses, then clicks into eternity. It's easy to forget how radical photography still was. By 1905, Kodak had already made cameras portable and, dare one say, fun. "You press the button, we do the rest," their slogan promised. People carried box cameras on holidays, immortalizing seaside picnics and crooked smiles. The Edwardian world became self-aware. Life was now lived for the lens. You stroll farther, drawn by the buzz of conversation outside a tea shop. Through the window, you see a group of women in wide hats and determined expressions. The suffragettes are gathering. Pamphlets pile high on the table, their headlines bold. "Votes for women, equal pay for equal work. Modern age, modern rights." This is progress of another kind, one not powered by gas or gears, but by courage. The Edwardian period was full of contradictions: luxury and poverty, invention and inequality, refinement and rebellion. While engineers built the future's machines, women like Emmeline Pankhurst were building its moral architecture. You watch as one of them stands, voice steady, eyes fierce. "If they can give a man a vote for owning a chimney," she says, "then surely a woman deserves one for keeping the fire lit." The room bursts into applause. Outside, passers-by roll their eyes, mutter, or smile, depending on their politics. You can almost feel history trembling, as if the very air is thick with decisions not yet made. You wander toward the park. There the world slows down. Nurses push perambulators along gravel paths. Gentlemen read newspapers under elm trees. A brass band plays an afternoon march, and children chase hoops in their starched white clothes. It's a tableau of serenity, but you know it's deceptive. Beneath the calm, the century is rumbling toward change. The old empire's edges are fraying. New machines promise both wonder and war. In one corner, a young man fiddles with a contraption that looks like a kite made of piano wire. He's explaining something about aerodynamics to a bored friend. You smile. Within a decade, those strange flying toys will be machines of travel and destruction. A newspaper headline on a nearby bench catches your eye. First successful flight by the Wright brothers. The date is December 1903. It feels almost like gossip now, but you can sense the awe it inspired. Humanity had finally lifted itself off the ground. The same people who once toasted bread by firelight now dreamt of crossing oceans by air. And yet not everything feels futuristic. A lamplighter moves down the street, methodically touching flame to glass. The lamps flicker awake, one by one, even though the wires above promise their obsolescence. For now, both light and fire coexist, gas beside electricity, horse beside engine, silence beside music trapped in wax. That coexistence is the soul of the Edwardian age. One foot in the 19th century, the other stepping boldly into the 20th. The people don't yet know what's coming: war, suffrage, jazz, cinema. But you do. And so, standing on that street, you feel both admiration and ache. Progress always hums in the distance, but it never hums without cost. A final gust of wind carries the smell of coal smoke and hot oil. You look up. The first electric streetlights are flickering on, scattering the dusk in measured pools of brilliance. Beneath them, faces glow golden, eyes reflecting curiosity, fear, and hope. The Edwardians called it the modern age. They were right, but not in the way they imagined. You take one last look before the light fades completely. The tram bell rings, the phonograph warbles from a shop, a suffragette's laughter drifts across the park, and somewhere in the distance, an engine coughs itself awake. The century is beginning. The glow of those new street lamps fades behind you as you step into the quieter edge of the city, where the hum of invention softens into a domestic lullaby. You find yourself standing before a row of houses, modest, trim, and glowing faintly through their curtains. Inside each, some small miracle of the Edwardian age is at work, reshaping what it means to live comfortably. You pause before one open window where laughter spills out, a gramophone crackles, and a gas fire flickers beneath an ornate mantel. The home feels alive, and that's exactly what the Edwardians wanted, a house that not only sheltered you but responded to you. The electric home, they whispered in advertisements, a servant that never sleeps. It sounds poetic, maybe even a little sinister, but to the people of that time, it was salvation. You step through the front door. Don't worry, you're invited. And the familiar scent of coal dust mingles with something sharper, cleaner, almost metallic. The air hums faintly, and somewhere, a wire buzzes like a bee behind plaster. Welcome to the age of the telephone. There it sits on a polished table in the hallway, black, heavy, with a mouthpiece like a trumpet and an earpiece that dangles from a cord. The owner of the house, a middle-class clerk with a tidy mustache, approaches it like a sacred relic. "We can talk to Aunt Beatrice in Kensington," he says proudly, without leaving the chair. He cranks a handle. Somewhere down the line, a faint click answers, a human voice, the operator asking, "Number, please." He gives it, waits, and then suddenly, "Beatrice, it's Ernest." "Yes, yes, splendid connection." The sound is distant, tinny, yet unmistakably alive. You lean in, marveling at the idea that the human voice can now travel through wires, across town, even across continents. Historians still argue whether the first domestic telephones truly brought families closer or simply replaced handwritten intimacy with mechanical chatter. But for now, no one cares. It's too wonderful, too new. In those early days, many homes treated the telephone as furniture, something to show off rather than use. Etiquette manuals sprang up almost overnight. Do not shout into the receiver, one advised. Do not gossip, your tone may travel further than your words. Another recommended keeping the device in the hallway so that private conversations never quite felt private. The telephone, ironically, made homes both more connected and more exposed. Still, its novelty turned ordinary evenings into events. Neighbors came by just to hear their own voices echo back from another house. It's like magic, they'd say, half laughing, half fearing the wizardry. And somewhere, Alexander Graham Bell would smile, already imagining a future where the world itself was stitched together by sound. A young boy enters the hall, curiosity written all over his freckled face. "Can I try, Father?" he asks. His father hesitates, then nods. The boy lifts the receiver, whispers, "Hello," and gasps when a voice, clear and crackling, answers, "Who's there?" It's Beatrice again, laughing from miles away. The boy's eyes widen. He's just discovered teleportation, Edwardian style. But the telephone was only part of the new domestic symphony. Upstairs, a different hum beckons. You climb the narrow staircase and find yourself in a small bedroom lit by electric light, soft, steady, and clean. The woman who lives here, Beatrice's sister perhaps, sits at a wooden writing desk. A fresh sheet of stationery lies before her, but she doesn't reach for a pen. Instead, she turns toward a small, boxy device on the corner shelf. It's a wireless receiver, one of the earliest. She adjusts a dial and the air comes alive with static, like the sound of a distant storm. Then faintly you hear it, a man's voice reading from a newspaper in another city. The words tremble but arrive whole. "Good evening, this is a transmission test." The woman leans closer, mesmerized. "Imagine," she whispers, "hearing the world like this." The early radio, still called the wireless then, felt like witchcraft. Invisible waves pulsing through the air, carrying music and speech without wires or wheels. No wonder some Edwardians whispered that it might disturb the spirits. "What if we hear voices that aren't meant for us?" one nervous columnist wrote. Others dismissed it as a passing curiosity, no more meaningful than a parlor trick. Historians still argue whether those early broadcasts truly reached many homes or were more rumor than reality. But one thing's certain, the world was beginning to listen. You linger by the soft crackle of the signal, feeling its eerie charm. The voice fades, replaced by faint static and the ghost of a melody. Somewhere, perhaps miles away, another listener is hearing the same song at the same moment. For the first time in human history, two strangers can share an experience in real time, without ever meeting. You wander back downstairs, your footsteps echoing faintly. The house feels charged with quiet energy, each invention humming like a heartbeat. But progress always carries an undercurrent of unease. The gaslights hiss in the hallway, the wires tremble faintly in the walls, and outside the tram lines hum with current. It's as if the whole world is vibrating, alive, awake, restless. In the drawing room, the family gathers after supper. The father reclines in his chair, pipe in hand. The mother flips through a magazine, The Electrical Age at Home. The boy plays with a model tram made of tin and wire. "Someday," he says proudly, "everything will move without horses." The mother smiles indulgently. "Let's hope," she says softly, "that people can keep up." The fire flickers. The telephone sits silent now, but its mere presence has changed the rhythm of their lives. News travels faster. Emergencies are managed instantly. Plans are made and broken within minutes. Communication, once deliberate and precious, is becoming continuous. You glance at the boy again, his toy tram whirring faintly across the carpet. He doesn't know that in a few short years, the same technology that powers his toy will carry soldiers and ammunition to the front lines. For now, though, innocence hums quietly in the living room's glow. The night deepens. Outside, you hear the distant ring of a telephone from another house, the soft buzz of a tram, and somewhere beyond the rooftops, the steady pulse of an electrical grid finding its rhythm. The Edwardians are asleep, but their inventions are not. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the next century murmuring through the wires, a whisper of airplanes, cinema, and broadcast news, of cities glowing all night long, of comfort, yes, but also dependence. You can feel the tension between awe and anxiety, progress and peace. You stand by the doorway one last time, looking back into that softly lit parlor. The father yawns, the mother dims the lights, the boy's toy tram winds down with a click. And then, darkness. Only the faint blue filament of an experimental bulb glows in the hall, a night light for the new age. You step outside into the crisp air. The stars overhead look unchanged, but you know they're shining on a world that will never sleep the same way again. The invisible web of wires, signals, and light is already binding the planet together, one quiet invention at a time. You breathe deeply. The smell of coal and ozone mixes in the air, old world and new, sharing the same sky. And then from a nearby house you hear it again, a telephone ringing softly, insistently into the night. Morning again, though not the kind of morning you've known before. The air in this Edwardian town carries a crisp tang of electricity and soap. Even the sunlight seems newer somehow, striking window glass with a clearer gleam. You stroll along the cobblestones, boots clicking, passing rows of tidy terraced houses that look outwardly identical, yet inside, something extraordinary hums to life. A soft crackle escapes an open window. You stop. That sound, like bacon sizzling from another dimension, belongs to the wireless, the crown jewel of Edwardian domestic marvels. It's 1906, and the world is just starting to realize that silence itself can be conquered. You peer through the curtain. Inside, a young man, shirt sleeves rolled, hair slightly wild, is leaning over a table crowded with wires, coils, and a polished wooden box. Beside him, his mother watches with the anxious patience of someone trying not to breathe too loudly. "It's working, Mama," he whispers. "Listen." He turns a dial. The static clears. And then, miracle, a human voice, faint but distinct, floats through the room. "This is a message from the Marconi Company, testing transmission on the 25-meter band." His mother gasps. The sound is as grainy as the edge of a dream, yet unmistakably human. Someone miles away is speaking through the air. The boy grins like a magician who's just pulled a thunderstorm from his hat. It's strange to think that in Edwardian homes, this was how the future arrived, not with explosions but with whispers. The first wireless sets weren't sleek boxes. They were messy contraptions strung with copper wire and hope. Hobbyists built them from kits, perched aerials on rooftops, and spent nights turning knobs, chasing phantom signals. It was equal parts science and science. Some listeners swore they heard music carried over the Atlantic. Others insisted on receiving voices from heaven. Historians still argue whether those reports were true or simply the wishful dreams of sleepless tinkerers. But even if the signals were faint or illusory, the promise was undeniable. Sound itself had escaped captivity. By 1908, talk of wireless concerts filled the papers. One journalist in the Daily Mail predicted that soon every household may tune in to opera or news without leaving the hearth. You can almost hear the scoffs of skeptics at the time. Imagine trying to explain Spotify to someone still hand-cranking a phonograph. The boy in the window tweaks another dial. Suddenly, faint violin notes spill out, a waltz dissolving into static, then clarity again. His mother's eyes fill with tears. "It's like the music's visiting," she says softly. And in a sense it is. The invisible has become intimate. You move on, the melody following you down the street until it fades into the hum of daily life. Laundry flaps from lines between chimneys. Milk carts rattle past. And yet, everything feels different now because every window, every rooftop wire might be a listening ear. The air has secrets in it. A man in a bowler hat tips his brim as he passes. Under his arm, he carries a folded newspaper with the headline, "Marconi Triumphs in Transatlantic Transmission." Below it, a smaller story, "Royal Navy Adopts Wireless Telegraphy for Fleet." The military sees what mothers and hobbyists do not, communication as power. You can sense the double edge of the invention already. What begins as music may soon become command. You wander toward a seaside town where another demonstration is underway. Crowds have gathered on the pier to witness a wireless wonder show. A Marconi engineer, nervous, mustached, wearing a waistcoat that's seen better days, stands before an array of instruments and declares, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we shall capture the very words of ships at sea." Gasps ripple through the audience. He adjusts a switch. Static fills the loudspeaker like ocean surf, then, astonishingly, a series of Morse clicks. That, he explains with pride, is the voice of the SS Poldhu, 30 miles offshore. The crowd bursts into applause. A woman nearby fans herself. "If we can hear ships," she whispers, "then soon we'll hear America." Another mutters, "Or worse, what if America hears us?" And there it is again, that Edwardian blend of wonder and unease, the recognition that invention never comes without its shadow. Historians still debate whether those early public broadcasts were truly spontaneous or carefully staged demonstrations. But regardless of truth, the impact was real. The age of isolation was ending. Humanity had begun to speak into the void, and the void was answering back. As dusk falls, you find yourself in a pub, drawn by the chatter of men debating the same miracle. "Mark my words," one says between sips of ale, "someday we'll get our news through the air, no papers, no post." His friend snorts. "And I suppose music'll float through the chimney too." They laugh, but it's the laughter of disbelief masking curiosity. In one corner, an elderly sailor listens quietly, pipe in hand. "I heard the first wireless call from a ship," he mutters. "Saved a crew from drowning off Newfoundland." His voice trembles. "Used to take hours to signal rescue by light or flag. Now, minutes." He exhales a thin stream of smoke. "That's worth every bit of magic it costs." Outside, the wind rises, carrying the scent of salt and ozone. You imagine the ocean dotted with ships, each whispering messages across the water like fireflies signaling in the dark. The same technology that brings a waltz to a parlor now binds sailors to safety, lovers to letters, empires to order. Back in the city, the boy with the wireless is still awake. The static has deepened, become almost soothing. His mother has gone to bed, but he sits cross-legged before the glowing dials, eyes bright. In his mind, he pictures the unseen world around him, a web of light and waves and whispers, stretching endlessly. He doesn't know it yet, but in a decade, this same wireless will report the Great War in real time, will carry both songs and sorrow across continents. For now, it's still innocent, just a boy and his box of electricity, dreaming. You step back into the street. The lamplighter is finishing his rounds. Each globe blooms golden against the fog. The night is alive with invisible conversation, ships calling to shore, inventors testing new frequencies, lovers sending more-stamped hearts across the sea. You breathe it in, the hum, the promise, the quiet awe of a world learning to listen. The Edwardians believed they were modern, and in this moment they truly are. The air is full of voices, and for the first time in history, home doesn't end at the doorstep. It stretches outward, limitless, through wire and wave alike. somewhere far off, another wireless crackles awake, answering the one behind you. The air itself has become a living thing. You leave the dimming seaside behind and step once again into the streets of the Edwardian city. But this time, the air is alive with a new kind of rumble. Beneath the usual clatter of hooves and the clang of tram bells, there's a lower growl, a deep mechanical heartbeat that seems to shake the very cobblestones. You turn your head and there it is, the motor car. It's not the sleek, purring creature you might know from your own time. No, this one looks half born from a dream and half cobbled from a blacksmith's nightmare. Leather seats, brass fittings and tires so thin they seem to tremble under the driver's confidence. You smell petrol, a harsh, alien scent amid the perfume of horse and rain. The machine coughs once, sputters and then roars forward, scattering pigeons and admiration alike. The driver, wearing goggles and gloves, grins wildly as he navigates between carriages. Behind him, a trail of gray smoke spirals up into the morning sky. On the sidewalk, an elderly woman clutches her parasol to her chest. "Monstrous thing," she cries. "It'll never last." Her grandson laughs. "You'll see, Gran. One day we'll all have one." Historians still argue whether that's optimism or prophecy. The year is around 1908, and the automobile, this awkward, noisy newcomer, is elbowing its way into Edwardian life. In towns across Britain and beyond, driveways are beginning to replace carriage houses, petrol pumps appear beside public houses, and words like chauffeur and garage sneak into everyday vocabulary. At first, only the rich can afford such indulgence. A motorcar costs more than most homes, and driving it requires not just daring but dedication. Every journey is a small engineering miracle, quips one commentator, and sometimes a small engineering disaster. Indeed, early cars often broke down halfway to anywhere, but that only adds to their mystique. To own one is to conquer nature, at least until the next puddle. You walk toward a grand Edwardian villa. Its iron gates open to reveal a circular gravel drive, and there, gleaming beneath a striped awning, rests a 1907 Napier polished to a mirror finish. The owner, a portly gentleman with mutton chops and pride enough for three, stands beside it as though introducing a noble guest. "She does 25 miles an hour," he boasts. "Uphill." His wife appears at the door, parasol in hand. "And 25 minutes late to tea," she says. He chuckles, doffing his hat. "Progress, my dear, always runs behind schedule." You watch as a footman, once accustomed to tending horses, now cleans the motor car with practiced care. The family's old stable has been converted into a garage, half oil, half perfume of hay that lingers like nostalgia. That smell tells you what the automobile is really doing. Not just changing how people move, but rewriting their relationship with space, status, and even time itself. Down the street, a different kind of motor car hums, a smaller, simpler model owned by a school teacher. She's not wealthy, but she's practical, and this new invention promises freedom. The hum of the engine becomes her rebellion against schedules, against the rigid geography of class. She drives herself to work, shocking the neighbors who whisper, "A woman behind the wheel, how unladylike." She just smiles, adjusts her hat pin, and presses forward. The road opens wide before her. The wind tangles her hair. And for the first time, she feels what freedom tastes like, not in metaphors, but in the rush of air and the vibration of progress beneath her feet. The Edwardian car isn't just a machine, it's a social experiment. Suddenly, distance collapses. Families who once vacationed at the nearest seaside can now explore distant coasts. Young couples sneak away for picnics beyond parental supervision, an entirely new concept in leisure and scandal. Carriage makers, once masters of elegance, scramble to reinvent themselves as manufacturers of motor bodies. Horses, faithful for millennia, begin to vanish from city centers. Even language bends to fit the new rhythm: parking, speeding, road rage. But progress comes with hiccups, literal and figurative. Roads designed for hooves crumble under rubber tires. There are no speed limits yet, at least none anyone respects. Policemen chase cars on bicycles, shaking fists as engines sputter and cough past. Newspapers report breathless accounts of motor menaces and petrol terrors. And yet, the fascination only grows. You find yourself at the city's edge, where new homes are being built, modern Edwardian villas with wide drives and gravel paths meant for cars, not carriages. Architects begin designing with machines in mind. Houses shift backward from the road, allowing vehicles to rest like mechanical pets out front. The suburban dream is being born, one combustion engine at a time. A salesman stands by a sign that reads, "Motoring, the future of family life." He tips his hat, handing you a pamphlet. "Imagine," he says, "Sunday outings without rail timetables, freedom to roam wherever the road leads." His eyes shine with missionary zeal. Your own kingdom on wheels. You flip through the pamphlet, illustrations of families smiling beside motor cars, picnic baskets open under blue skis. In each image, the car isn't merely transport, it's identity. The Edwardians are learning what modern advertising will perfect. Sell not the product, but the feeling. A few feet away, a boy crouches beside a puddle, playing with a toy version of the same car. He pushes it through the mud, imitating the sputtering engine sound. His mother scolds him for dirtying his knees, but he hardly hears. His imagination is already roaring down roads that don't yet exist. That boy might grow up to see cars dominate every street, or even to build faster, louder machines that fly. Historians still debate which moment marks the true birth of the automobile age: the first engine, the first road trip, the first traffic jam. But you're standing in the middle of it now. The smell of petrol clings to the air, the roads are widening, and people are learning a new language of motion. By evening, you find yourself in a quiet lane lined with lamplight. An older man trudges home beside his horse, head bowed. A car sputters past him, headlights blazing like twin suns. For a moment, the two worlds overlap, the ancient and the new. Then the motor car disappears into the fog. The horse snorts softly, patient and bewildered. Change, as always, makes some nostalgic, others restless, and everyone late for supper. You follow the car's retreating glow until it vanishes beyond the curve. In the silence that follows, you realize the Edwardian home is no longer bound by its garden gate. Comfort, once confined to hearth and parlor, now extends to the open road. Warmth can be carried with you. Adventure can be domesticated. Somewhere ahead, you can almost hear the echo of what's coming: the hum of highways, the buzz of engines multiplied 1,000-fold. The Edwardians don't know it yet, but they've started the longest commute in human history. You look back at the empty lane, the lamplight flickering on puddles, and you think, this is where home learned how to move. The road hum fades behind you as you drift toward another sort of revolution, one that hums not in the street, but in the walls of the Edwardian home itself. You step through a familiar red brick doorway, boots leaving faint prints on the mosaic tiles. Inside, the air feels different, fresher, lighter somehow, and you realize something subtle has changed. The faint, smoky tang that used to linger from the kitchen range is gone. There's no haze of coal dust clinging to the curtains. You take a deeper breath, surprised. The Edwardians, it seems, have discovered the magic of clean air, or at least, cleaner air. Over your head, a soft hiss whispers through a pipe, and a faint metallic warmth pulses through the floorboards. Welcome to the new age of indoor climate control. It doesn't look like much: some brass fittings, a few curious vents, a thermostat the size of a pocket watch. But to a family who has survived winters wrapped in shawls and summers gasping through soot, it's a kind of miracle. You move toward the fireplace. The hearth still dominates the room, carved marble and iron grate intact, but it's now half ceremonial. A few gentle embers glow within, not for heat but for comfort, nostalgia even. The real warmth now comes from the radiators lining the skirting board, cast iron ribs humming quietly, fed by a coal-fired boiler in the basement. It's progress wrapped in pipes. The lady of the house enters, rubbing her hands together. "Can you imagine," she says to no one in particular, "not having to carry scuttles of coal every morning?" She glances at the gleaming radiator with something close to affection. "He may grumble about the bills, but I call that worth every penny." She means her husband, of course, who downstairs in his slippers is inspecting the new marvel, a domestic boiler imported from Germany, because naturally British manufacturers are still arguing about whether such contraptions are suitable for respectable homes. Historians still debate whether Edwardians truly trusted new heating systems or merely tolerated them while keeping a poker handy. The shift from hearth to radiator is more than mechanical, it's emotional. The fireplace had always been the symbolic center of Victorian domestic life, the glowing heart around which families gathered. But now, warmth flows invisibly, democratically. Every bedroom, even the servants' quarters, gets its share. You can almost feel the hierarchy melting a little with every turn of the valve. You climb the stairs. The hallway is no longer cold and echoing. It carries the same mild heat as the sitting room. Upstairs, a boy is doing homework without shivering. His sister's canary sings, unbothered by drafts. The air feels civilized, domesticated, tamed. And yet down the street, many homes still shiver under the old order, open fires, soot, and endless ash. Progress always arrives one house at a time. By contrast, the summer months bring their own challenge, keeping cool. You can imagine the Edwardians fanning themselves beneath high ceilings, shaded by lace curtains and green-painted shutters. The wealthy install punka fans, great fabric panels that sway gently overhead, powered by an electric motor or, occasionally, a rather bored servant pulling a rope in the next room. You chuckle quietly, air conditioning in spirit if not in refrigerant. But there's another revolution brewing in comfort, one that hisses softly behind the scenes. Gas and electricity are fighting for dominance. In the kitchen, you hear the clang of a pan and the hiss of a gas range. Gone are the sooty stoves of yesteryear. The new gas cooker with its gleaming enamel finish and precise blue flame makes cooking faster, cleaner, and far less backbreaking. Housewives can now control heat with a twist of a knob, an act that feels almost alchemical. A plump cook wipes her hands on her apron, muttering proudly, "No more soot in the custard." She gestures toward a small dial. "See this? Low heat for puddings, high for the roast." Then, lowering her voice as if sharing a scandal, "and no smoke to scrub off the ceiling." Gas has truly infiltrated the home, lighting, heating, cooking. Yet in some houses, the first flickers of electric competition have arrived. You notice a strange hybrid room, one side lit by gas mantles, the other by early electric bulbs hanging from braided cords. The electric light hums faintly, cleaner and steadier. It has no smell, no flame. It feels modern, safe, though the newspapers still print stories of electrocuted parlor maids. Historians still argue whether electricity's early adoption was driven by necessity or by vanity, whether people truly needed it or just liked the idea of their homes glowing like exhibition halls. But one thing's certain, electricity changes the mood. It turns night into perpetual dusk, gentle and golden. The Edwardian home no longer dies at sundown. It softens, stretches, glows. Outside, engineers dig trenches along the streets, laying the veins of this new power. Men in tweed caps and lanterns work late into the evening, shouting over the rattle of metal. From your window, you see sparks fly, small stars of progress lighting up the fog. The city hums with energy, not just literal but cultural. And that hum, that invisible current, seeps into every room. Electric irons replace heavy cast iron ones heated on stoves. Electric doorbells chime politely instead of clanging. Even the humble vacuum cleaner begins its slow conquest of carpets. Early models look like something between a cannon and a teapot, and they make a noise that could wake the dead. But the housemaid beams proudly as she demonstrates it. Cleaner than any broom, sir. You have to admire her optimism, considering the machine weighs more than a small pony. Still, progress doesn't have to be elegant to be effective. At night, you wander through the softly lit rooms. The wallpaper glows in pale tones, brass fittings gleam. Somewhere, a clock ticks steadily. You can sense how these small inventions, radiators, fans, switches, are reshaping daily life. Comfort, once wrestled from nature through sheer labor, is now available on demand. The home is no longer a fortress against the elements. It's a controlled ecosystem. But there's an irony to all this modern comfort. The Edwardians, obsessed with cleanliness and health, begin to seal their houses tight to keep out dirt and drafts. Curtains thicken, windows close, ventilation suffers. Doctors warn of stale air and indoor malaise. So inventors respond yet again, installing ventilators, air shafts, even small electric fans that keep the atmosphere circulating. You lean close to one of these early fans. It whirs softly, more noise than breeze, but its symbolism is huge. The air itself is now something to be managed. Later that night, you step outside into the cool garden. Through the windows, you see light spilling out, soft as honey. The hum of technology has become the heartbeat of the home. You imagine the servants downstairs gossiping about these new conveniences, whether they make life easier or just give the masters new ways to complain. Upstairs, the children sleep under wool blankets, their dreams quietly warmed by the pipes below. In a few decades, the descendants of these innovations will become so ordinary that no one will remember a world without them. But right now, in this Edwardian moment, every hiss of steam, every glow of filament feels like sorcery. A cat jumps onto the garden wall, stretching toward the light. The house breathes behind it, warm, alive, awake. You can almost hear it whisper, "I am comfortable now." And yet some part of you knows the story isn't finished, because comfort, once tasted, is never enough. There will always be something new to heat, cool, or illuminate. You turn toward the glowing windows one last time. Tomorrow there will be another invention, a cleaner flame, a brighter bulb, a quieter fan. But tonight, you stand in the golden hush of the Edwardian evening, marveling at how humanity has learned not just to survive the seasons, but to command them. The morning sun spills through your window in lazy, golden streams, but it doesn't feel like the same sun as yesterday. Today, it illuminates a world increasingly alive with subtle ingenuity, a world where the Edwardians are perfecting not just comfort, but the art of making labor almost invisible. You leave the house and wander down the quiet streets, noticing the small revolutions tucked into everyday life. First, the laundry. You catch sight of a line swaying gently in the breeze, but there's more here than sunshine and stiff collars. On closer inspection, you see a neighbor leaning over a strange contraption, a hand-cranked wringer washing machine. Water churns inside its drum as she turns the handle rhythmically. The device is heavy, mechanical, and rather loud, but what a relief. No more pounding clothes on stones or hauling tubs through freezing water. Children dart around her legs, laughing. She glances down at them, brushes a strand of hair from her face, and whispers, "We might just survive the wash day yet." You grin. Edwardians are still learning the hard truth. Comfort is often noisy, awkward, and slightly frightening, but once achieved, it feels miraculous. Not far away, a man in a bowler hat struggles with a vacuum cleaner the size of a small dog. It huffs and snorts like an angry beast, but it works. The carpets of his sitting room, once a graveyard for crumbs and dust, are now astonishingly clean. Historians still argue whether early vacuum cleaners truly reduced domestic labor or simply displaced it into more mechanical forms, but the effect on morale is undeniable. A cleaner house is a calmer mind, or so the saying goes. You follow the sound of laughter to a bakery at the corner, where an electric mixer spins dough in a polished copper bowl. The baker wipes his brow and chuckles. Faster, cleaner, and I don't have to kneel over the table for hours. Children press their noses to the glass, mesmerized by the churning motion. Food is no longer just sustenance, it's entertainment, a mechanical ballet performed for hungry eyes. Meanwhile, upstairs in one house, a young woman experiments with a new invention that's just beginning to appear in the wealthiest homes, the electric iron. She presses the collars of her husband's shirts, marveling at how quickly creases vanish. Gone are the long, sweaty hours over a red-hot stove. Electricity makes domestic labor efficient, even elegant. She pauses to glance out the window, wondering how long it will be before such appliances are common in every household. Step into a parlor and you hear the gentle tick of a self-winding clock. No longer must servants wind each timepiece individually. Now, springs and gears do the labor automatically. Time itself is being domesticated. Even the simplest details, watches, candlesticks, doorbells, carry evidence of ingenuity. Every home is a small workshop of progress. Electric bells call children to meals and visitors to the door. In the kitchen, gas lights burn steadily, cooking ranges hum, and in the corner a phonograph spins its cylinder, filling the room with music. You hear a soft voice warbling an aria, tinny but enchanting. Once, music belonged only to those who could play it. Now it floats invisibly, ready at a crank or a turn of a button. In the dining room, a woman pours tea into porcelain cups. You notice the teapot is heated not by coals but by a small electric element. Steam rises in a delicate curl. It's a minor miracle, and yet so ordinary that most in the household hardly notice. Comfort is creeping into their bones, becoming second nature. But Edwardian innovation isn't all domestic and cozy. Outside, the streets continue to vibrate with the pulse of transport, motor cars, trams, and bicycles vying for space. Traffic is chaotic, smells are pungent, and the air is tinged with the scent of coal, petrol, and ambition. It's exhilarating, exhausting, and entirely modern. The city hums with invisible energy as wires and pipes spread beneath the streets. You pause beside a telephone kiosk. A small crowd has gathered, some testing the new public line, others gossiping. You listen, fascinated. The telephone allows not just conversation, but the construction of invisible communities, neighbors connected across streets, families linked across towns. Historians still debate whether it encouraged closeness or created dependence, but there's no denying the novelty and convenience. Continuing your walk, you notice small details. The lamplighters lowering their gas mantles to allow the new electric bulbs to dominate, shop windows glowing with new appliances, and posters advertising domestic inventions as marvels of modern life. The culture of convenience is taking hold, subtle but unstoppable. In a narrow lane, a young girl skips rope near a home with an electric bell. She presses the button experimentally, delighting in the chime that echoes down the street. Nearby, a maid tests a small, mechanized carpet sweeper. Both are unaware, of course, that these humble machines are harbingers of a future where labor itself will be mechanized in nearly every home. The Edwardian home, in short, is beginning to feel like a stage. Each gadget is a prop, each invention a small actor in the performance of modern comfort. They work quietly, invisibly, yet their impact is profound. Families can now spend less time fighting the elements, more time living, though historians still debate whether these conveniences truly improved life or merely created new forms of expectation. You stop at the edge of a garden and watch the evening light fall across neatly trimmed hedges and brass-topped railings. A brass fan whirs faintly in the corner of a veranda. Somewhere inside, the phonograph spins its cylinder, the vacuum cleaner idles, and the young girl laughs at the electric bell once more. And there it is, the Edwardian home in its glory, humming with comfort, curiosity, and quiet ingenuity. A domestic revolution has arrived not with fanfare, but with pipes, wires, and the soft hiss of progress. Evening stretches long and lazy over the Edwardian neighborhood. The glow from the windows spills onto cobblestones, warm and inviting, as if each home is holding its own private sun. You wander past them, taking in the subtle revolution humming inside, the tiny, almost invisible innovations that have transformed domestic life. You pause at a townhouse with lace curtains drawn just enough to hint at activity within. The dining room is alive with gentle sounds, cutlery clinking against porcelain, a kettle hissing softly, a phonograph playing a waltz from the latest cylinder. The scene is familiar, yet oddly futuristic. Steam curls from a teapot heated by electricity, not coal, and in the background, a small brass fan circulates the air without a hint of labor. The room smells faintly of flowers and polished wood, a fragrance carefully preserved by the absence of smoke. You climb the steps to the parlor. Here, a young woman is sewing by the light of a recently installed electric lamp. Her movements are precise, almost meditative. The shadows cast by the bulb are softer than those of flickering gas flames, lending the room an intimacy previously reserved for candle-lit evenings. Historians still debate whether electric light truly improved domestic productivity or merely reshaped leisure. You suspect it's a bit of both. A gentleman leans back in his chair, pipe in hand, listening to the mechanical symphony of the home. The telephone sits silently on a nearby table, ready to connect him to the outside world. He adjusts a knob on the wireless receiver and a distant voice begins to drift in. The latest news from the city, a snippet of music and the occasional static crackle. He smiles. He feels connected, informed, and in control of a home that practically hums with obedience. You step into the kitchen. The gas stove's blue flames lap gently beneath a simmering pot. An electric iron rests on the counter, its cord trailing neatly behind. The maid, who once would have spent hours tending fires, now oversees the machinery with a mix of pride and skepticism. She lifts a teapot from the electric warmer and sets it beside the kettle. "Soon, everything will have its own little engine," she mutters, half to herself. Downstairs, a child practices with a small mechanical toy, one of the early wind-up trains. Its wheels click over miniature tracks and the boy's laughter echoes through the house. In many ways, the toys mirror the home itself, intricate, self-sustaining, and quietly transformative. There's joy in mastery, a satisfaction that comes from understanding motion, rhythm, and cause and effect. Outside, the electric street lamps glow softly along the sidewalk. Their light spills over horse-drawn carriages, early automobiles, and pedestrians, blending the old world with the new. You notice the contrast. Some houses still rely on gas mantles and candles, while others gleam with the pale, steady illumination of electricity. It's a world of coexistence, a delicate negotiation between tradition and innovation. You wander into a small garden behind one of the houses. The scent of roses mingles with the faint tang of ozone from a nearby electric generator. In a corner, a lawn sprinkler, connected to a rudimentary mechanical timer, arcs water gently over the grass. The combination of control, cleanliness, and aesthetic pleasure is intoxicating. The Edwardians have learned that comfort is both physical and psychological. A well-watered lawn, like a warm radiator, is a statement of order and care. The air carries the distant sounds of social gatherings. In a neighboring home, a gramophone spins another cylinder, the music faintly audible outside. Conversations drift in, talk of the latest inventions, political matters, and the small dramas of daily life. A visitor glances at the telephone and shakes his head in wonder. "In my day, a message had to be carried by hand," he says. "Now, words travel faster than a horse." You remember that same sense of astonishment at the first motor cars, the first phonographs, and the first wireless signals. Everything, sound, light, motion, communication, is being domesticated. Comfort is no longer merely a luxury. It is a carefully orchestrated system designed to smooth the edges of existence. Upstairs, the young woman finishes her sewing. She glances at the electric lamp, the iron, the phonograph, and the wireless receiver. Her eyes widen slightly, absorbing the full spectrum of domestic change. The house seems almost alive, each device an organ, each light a pulse. The home has become an ecosystem, balancing human needs with mechanical assistance. You step outside once more, drawn to the quiet of the garden. The fountain trickles softly, illuminated by an electric bulb, and somewhere a brass fan whirs faintly. The sounds mingle into a lullaby of domestic ingenuity: water, air, warmth, and music. The Edwardian home has learned to breathe. You pause and reflect on the magnitude of this transformation. From the coal-fired kitchens and gas-lit halls of yesterday to electrically warmed rooms, telephones, wireless transmissions, and motor cars, the very definition of home has shifted. Comfort, once earned through labor and endurance, is now delivered by invisible forces, quietly obeying the residents' needs. And as you step back into the lamplit street, you realize the full scope of the change. The Edwardians have not merely improved their homes, they have reimagined them. The domestic revolution hums in every corner, every room, and every machine, whispering a promise that the future will always be more convenient, more connected, and infinitely more alive. The evening deepens, and the streets of the Edwardian city begin to quiet, though not completely. The hum of invention persists like a low, persistent heartbeat. You walk past homes where the windows glow warmly, each one a tiny lighthouse of comfort and ingenuity. You notice the smallest details now: the twist of a gas knob, the faint crackle of a phonograph, the soft hiss of radiators. They are the quiet miracles of everyday life, easily overlooked but profoundly transformative. You stop before a particularly grand home. Its garden is edged with neatly trimmed boxwood, and the front hall gleams under the soft light of an electric chandelier. Inside, a young man adjusts a wireless receiver. The static clears and you hear music, a violin concerto, shimmering and faint, yet unmistakably beautiful. The sound carries through the house, echoing off polished wood and wallpapered walls. He closes his eyes and leans back, letting the invisible orchestra envelop him. Nearby, a lady arranges her afternoon tea. Her kettle is heated electrically, her silver tray polished until it catches the light in delicate sparks. She surveys the room, noting the subtle efficiency that surrounds her: radiators gently warming the floors, fans circulating air with barely a sound, a vacuum cleaner patiently waiting for its turn. The Edwardian home has become almost sentient, responding quietly to the desires and rhythms of its inhabitants. The telephone sits on a nearby table, silent but ready. A maid hovers nearby, fingers poised, waiting for the chance to connect the household to friends, business, or distant relatives. There is a thrill in the immediacy of communication. Letters now seem slow, archaic, almost quaint. The household has entered a new era where news and music travel through invisible channels, blurring the line between private and public life. Historians still debate whether this connectivity brought families closer together or simply created new anxieties, but there is no doubt that it changed the very fabric of domestic existence. You wander into the kitchen, where a cook experiments with a new gas stove. The flames lap the edges of pots and pans, precise and controllable, unlike the unpredictable hearth fires of the past. She stirs, tasting, adjusting, smiling. Cooking has become a craft of control, elegance, and speed. Meanwhile, a young apprentice marvels at the electric iron resting nearby. No longer must the labor of pressing clothes dominate the day. Now, it is reduced to a swift, efficient task. Outside, a motorcar hums past, scattering the evening mist. The sound is strange, almost exhilarating, and you catch a faint whiff of petrol mixed with rain-soaked cobblestones. The car disappears into the distance, leaving only the echo of its engine behind. The streets are becoming a stage for motion, speed, and modernity, a complement to the still, controlled environment inside the homes. You move toward a smaller, humbler house. Inside, a family gathers around a phonograph, listening intently. The children laugh as a cylinder spins and the parents exchange knowing glances. They have discovered a new kind of entertainment, one that requires no skill, no instrument, only the press of a button or the turn of a crank. Music, once a luxury for the trained, has become a shared pleasure for the household, democratizing art in a way never seen before. The living room is warm, subtly scented with soap and wax polish. You notice a small fan whirring quietly, circulating air in a barely perceptible rhythm. The radiators hum softly, and the gas lamps cast a steady glow. This is comfort engineered, orchestrated, controlled. The household functions like a well-tuned machine, with humans and devices harmonizing to create an environment almost entirely free of discomfort. You ascend the stairs to a bedroom where a young girl is reading by the light of an electric lamp. She pauses, listening to the faint strains of music drifting from the parlor below. The glow illuminates her face, softening her features and filling the room with a warmth that is physical, emotional, and even psychological. Sleep will come easier here, surrounded by machines that hum, hiss, and whir in gentle symphony. In another bedroom, a boy experiments with a small mechanical train. The wheels clack and spin across the wooden floor, echoing faintly through the house. It is a microcosm of the larger innovations surrounding him, an early glimpse of a world where toys, appliances, and comforts all operate with a mind of their own. Each turn of the crank, each adjustment of a dial, teaches him mastery, curiosity, and patience. Downstairs, the parents sip tea and admire the quiet efficiency of their home. The stove, radiators, fans, and wireless receiver all work in unison, reducing labor, enhancing leisure, and transforming routine into pleasure. Historians still debate whether this technological orchestration improved daily life or simply shifted labor into the unseen shadows. But to these Edwardians, the changes feel nothing short of miraculous. You pause in the hallway, listening to the gentle symphony of domestic innovation. The radiators hum, the fans whisper, the phonograph spins, the kettle hisses. Even the walls seem alive, filled with invisible currents of heat, light, and sound. Comfort, once an abstract concept, has become tangible, almost material, and the home itself feels less like a building and more like a living, breathing companion. Stepping back outside, you inhale the crisp night air. The streets glimmer with electric lamps, distant motor cars rumble past, and the faint echo of laughter drifts from a nearby house. The Edwardian neighborhood is quiet yet alive, a testament to human ingenuity, persistence, and the relentless pursuit of comfort. You realize that home is no longer simply a shelter. It is a carefully orchestrated ecosystem, a network of machines, appliances, and human care working in quiet concert. The boundaries between labor, leisure, and life itself have blurred, creating a space that is at once familiar and astonishingly modern. And as you stand there, watching the soft glow of lamplight ripple over cobblestones, you sense the true magnitude of the transformation. The Edwardians have not only tamed the elements, they have begun to tame the very experience of living. Night deepens over the Edwardian city, but the homes continue to hum softly, a gentle chorus of domestic innovation. You wander along a narrow street where gas lamps flicker beside the newer electric globes, and the contrast between old and new is almost poetic. Some houses are dark, still reliant on candlelight, while others glow with the steady, golden illumination of electric lamps, revealing glimpses of warm, orderly interiors. You stop in front of a modest row house. A window is open, revealing a kitchen bustling with quiet activity. Steam rises from a gas stove, but nearby, an electric kettle hums gently, bringing water to a precise boil. The cook, once confined to endless hours of labor over open fires, now moves with ease, orchestrating her appliances like a conductor guiding a symphony. She tastes a sauce, adjusts the flame, and smiles. Comfort has arrived, almost silently, in the rhythm of her hands and the hiss of controlled heat. A young maid hovers nearby, experimenting with a small vacuum cleaner. The machine huffs and snorts like an impatient animal, but the carpets quickly gleam under her efforts. She glances around the kitchen, nodding the radiators softly heating the room and the fans circulating air. The home is a living network of ingenuity, and each device reduces toil while creating a sense of ease and mastery. You move upstairs, where children are engaged in a different kind of innovation, the small pleasures of mechanical toys. A wind-up train clacks along a wooden track, mirroring the larger mechanical marvels that define the Edwardian household. The children giggle as they chase it, oblivious to the broader technological transformations surrounding them. Play, like domestic comfort, is beginning to merge seamlessly with ingenuity, training the next generation to live in harmony with machines. In a nearby parlor, a phonograph spins, filling the room with faint strains of a waltz. The parents sip tea, listening as music drifts through the home without requiring the skill of a musician. Sound, like light and heat, has been tamed. Historians still argue whether these early mechanical entertainments fostered cultural enrichment or merely distracted from deeper intellectual pursuits, but the Edwardians themselves seem content either way. You wander into the study. A gentleman adjusts a wireless receiver, listening intently to faint transmissions from across the city. The device crackles, a signal caught and tamed, bringing distant voices into the intimate domestic space. He leans back in his chair, pipe in hand, marveling at the new possibilities. News, music, and communication delivered instantly, effortlessly. The home is no longer an isolated sanctuary. It is connected, alive, and interactive. Outside, the wind carries faint sounds of the city, the rumble of motor cars, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages, and the occasional shout of a street vendor. Streetlights glow softly, illuminating cobblestones slick with evening mist. The interplay of human activity and mechanical innovation creates a quiet rhythm, a subtle pulse that extends beyond the walls of the home itself. You pause at a garden gate, noticing the faint hiss of a sprinkler, one of the earliest attempts at automated irrigation in a private yard. The device arcs water gently over neat rows of flowers, a miniature marvel of engineering that merges utility with beauty. It reminds you that Edwardian domestic innovation is not confined to interiors. It extends outdoors, shaping gardens, lawns, and even the neighborhood landscape. Inside, the bedroom is softly lit. A young girl reads by the glow of an electric lamp, the quiet hum of radiators warming the room. The night air is tempered, circulating gently through the space, and the house itself seems to breathe with a calm, measured rhythm. She turns the page of her book, oblivious to the innovations surrounding her, yet fully benefiting from them. Downstairs, the kitchen is almost silent. The cook has finished her tasks, the vacuum cleaner rests quietly, and the gas stove is dim. Yet the home remains alive with subtle energy. Warmth radiates from the radiators, a fan circulates the air, and distant voices drift through the wireless. Comfort is no longer about activity alone. It is about balance, precision, and the orchestration of invisible forces. In the hallway, you notice a small clock ticking steadily. It is self-winding, a minor yet transformative convenience that reduces repetitive labor and synchronizes the rhythms of daily life. Every detail of the home, no matter how small, has been reimagined, streamlined, or mechanized. The Edwardians have begun to weave technology into the very fabric of living. You step outside once more. The streets are quiet, but the city continues to pulse with innovation. Electric lamps glow softly, motorcars hum in the distance, and the faint hiss of sprinklers and radiators mixes with the night air. The Edwardian home has become both sanctuary and stage, a place where comfort, ingenuity, and daily life intersect in seamless harmony. You pause, taking in the full scene: the glow of light, the gentle hum of machinery, the quiet laughter of children, and the subtle orchestration of daily comfort. The domestic revolution, so carefully nurtured, has transformed not only the routines of life but the very atmosphere of the home itself. And as you stand in the soft mist, you realize that Edwardians have not merely adapted to modern inventions. They have embraced them, weaving innovation into the most intimate spaces of their lives, creating homes that are alive, responsive, and surprisingly gentle. The night deepens further, but the city refuses to sleep. From the faintly glowing windows of Edwardian homes, you hear the soft orchestration of domestic life, the quiet hum of radiators, the gentle hiss of fans, the faint clatter of dishes being washed more efficiently than ever before. Each sound is small, almost imperceptible, yet together they form a symphony of comfort, progress, and subtle ingenuity. You wander along a narrow street, observing the interplay between old and new. Gas lamps flicker alongside the steadier glow of electric bulbs. Motorcars hum past horse-drawn carriages, mingling scents of coal, oil, and wet cobblestones. The Edwardian city is a place of contrasts, past and future entwined in a delicate, ongoing negotiation. A townhouse draws your attention. Through the open window, you glimpse the interior. A cook adjusts the flame of a gas stove while an electric kettle hums beside her. Radiators hum quietly beneath the windowsills, and a small brass fan stirs the warm air. The household runs like clockwork, its machinery almost invisible, yet entirely essential. Comfort has become mechanical, precise, and subtle. Upstairs, a young girl reads by the soft glow of an electric lamp. The phonograph in the parlor spins gently, providing music without the need for skill or effort. She pauses, listening to the strains of a waltz, and you realize that the home has become more than a place to live. It is an ecosystem where labor, leisure, and innovation intersect seamlessly. Historians still debate whether these conveniences truly improved domestic life or simply displaced labor into new forms, but the effect is undeniable. The home has become more livable, more responsive, and more comforting. You move into the study. A gentleman leans back in his chair, adjusting a wireless receiver. Static crackles faintly before a distant voice emerges, clear and human, carrying music, news, and conversation into the intimate domestic space. The technology allows the household to interact with the wider world effortlessly. Distance is no longer a barrier, and information flows invisibly, binding the household to events and people far beyond its walls. In the parlor, a maid demonstrates a small vacuum cleaner. Its huffs and snorts are accompanied by laughter as the carpets become remarkably clean. The radiators hum, the fans whisper, and the household seems to breathe, alive with the quiet rhythms of innovation. Even the smallest appliances, irons, clocks, sprinklers, contribute to an environment designed to maximize ease, comfort, and efficiency. Outside, motorcars continue their slow conquest of the streets. Pedestrians, horses, and vehicles share the space in an uneasy harmony, a visible metaphor for the broader negotiation between tradition and modernity. Streetlights glow softly over cobblestones slick with mist, illuminating the interplay between technology and daily life. You notice a small garden, where a mechanical sprinkler arcs water over neat flower beds. Its rhythm is precise, predictable, and almost meditative. Nearby, a wind-up toy train clicks along miniature tracks, echoing the larger mechanical world around it. Children laugh, oblivious to the broader technological revolution shaping their environment, yet fully benefiting from its conveniences. Inside, kitchens, parlors, and bedrooms hum quietly with domestic innovations. Radiators, gas stoves, electric irons, fans, and phonographs all contribute to an orchestrated environment where comfort is no longer a struggle but a carefully engineered reality. Each household functions as a self-contained ecosystem, balancing human needs with mechanical assistance in a delicate harmony. You step into a hallway and notice a self-winding clock ticking steadily. It is a minor, almost invisible detail, yet it encapsulates the essence of Edwardian innovation: small, precise, and transformative. Time, labor, and comfort have all been subtly redesigned, and the home itself has become a living, breathing participant in the daily life of its inhabitants. The night outside is calm. You walk past lamplit streets, motor cars rumbling in the distance, and the occasional sound of conversation drifting from open windows. Each house glows softly, a beacon of progress, comfort, and ingenuity. The domestic revolution is fully underway, and its effects are profound. You pause to absorb the scene. The Edwardian home is no longer a mere shelter. It is an orchestrated environment, alive with gentle mechanisms, humming quietly and responding to the needs of those who inhabit it. Comfort, once laboriously earned, is now engineered, reliable, and nearly invisible. And as you linger in the misty night, you realize the Edwardians have not simply adopted modern inventions. They have made them intimate, domestic, and essential. The home, in its glow, hum, and quiet efficiency, has become a sanctuary and a stage, a place where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. The night is fully upon the city now, yet the hum of Edwardian innovation continues to echo faintly through its streets and homes. You stroll slowly, letting your senses absorb the delicate symphony of progress, the gentle hiss of radiators, the faint whirl of a fan, the low rumble of distant motorcars, and the soft tinkle of an electric bell. Each sound is almost imperceptible alone, yet together they form a chorus celebrating the domestication of comfort. You pause before a house whose windows glow warmly in the mist. The parlor is alive with music. A phonograph spins, casting faint notes across polished wood and patterned wallpaper. A young woman sits sewing by the glow of an electric lamp, the hum of the radiator providing a gentle, steady undertone. The home breathes with quiet ingenuity, every appliance working in harmony to create a space that is as comforting as it is efficient. Upstairs, a child adjusts the tracks of a wind-up train, their laughter echoing softly. The mechanical toy mirrors the larger innovations surrounding them: the gas stove, the electric iron, the fans circulating air, and the wireless receiver bringing distant sounds into the intimate domestic space. Play and labor alike have been subtly transformed, mechanized, and made more elegant. Historians still argue whether such mechanization freed time or simply displaced it, but the effect is tangible. Life feels lighter, easier, and unexpectedly luxurious. You step into the kitchen. The cook moves efficiently between the gas stove and the electric kettle, while a maid demonstrates the vacuum cleaner. Steam curls gracefully from pots, fans whisper faintly, and radiators hum steadily, transforming the space from a place of arduous labor into one of orchestrated calm. Even minor devices, like self-winding clocks and small garden sprinklers, have been woven seamlessly into the rhythms of domestic life. Outside, the streets shimmer with the glow of electric lamps. Motorcars hum past horse-drawn carriages, a visible representation of the ongoing negotiation between tradition and modernity. You notice the faint hiss of a sprinkler in a nearby garden, the meticulous arcs of water reflecting the lamplight. Everything, it seems, has been carefully designed to balance efficiency, beauty, and comfort. You wander into a bedroom where a child reads by the soft glow of a lamp, the radiators humming quietly in the background. The home, fully equipped with early 20th century inventions, has become almost sentient, responding subtly to the needs of its inhabitants. It is more than a shelter. It is a living environment orchestrated for convenience, warmth, and pleasure. In the parlor, a gentleman listens to music via a wireless receiver, a faint smile on his lips. The telephone rests silently nearby, ready to connect him to distant voices. The young girl downstairs plays with a mechanical toy, unaware that her amusement mirrors the domestic innovations surrounding her. Outside, the night hums with motor cars and distant conversation. The city, both alive and calm, is a stage for the domestic revolution unfolding within every house. You pause on the sidewalk, taking in the full scope of the transformation. The Edwardian home is no longer defined solely by walls, roofs, and hearths. It is an ecosystem, a carefully balanced environment in which comfort is manufactured, labor is minimized, and life feels more orderly, predictable, and gentle. Historians still debate the long-term effects of these domestic innovations, but in this moment, the evidence is clear. The home has been reshaped, tamed, and transformed into a sanctuary of modern living. You breathe deeply, savoring the mix of electric warmth, gaslight glow, and mechanical precision. Everything in the Edwardian home, from the motor car in the street to the tiniest appliance in the kitchen, works quietly to enhance life. It is a delicate balance of technology and human touch, comfort and control, old world and new. And as you step back, letting the glow of lamplight ripple over cobblestones and through mist, you feel the quiet truth of it. The Edwardians have succeeded not merely in surviving the elements, but in mastering them, creating a world where comfort flows invisibly, efficiently, and beautifully through every corner of domestic life. The hum of radiators, the soft whirl of fans, the faint rattle of motor cars in the distance, all of it becomes a lullaby, a gentle reminder that human ingenuity has turned homes into havens, and ordinary life into an orchestration of subtle miracles. Now, as the night stretches and the city quiets, let yourself breathe slowly. The hum of the Edwardian home fades to a gentle whisper. Imagine radiators softly circulating warmth, fans stirring air just enough to carry the scent of polished wood and faint soap, and a phonograph spinning softly in the corner. The motor cars and street lamps of distant avenues blend into a soft, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat shared between house and city. You may feel the gentle weight of history settle around you. Every pipe, every cord, every mechanical device was designed to ease life, to allow families to rest, to enjoy, to dream. Imagine stepping from room to room, each space calibrated for comfort, light, warmth, and quiet. The house breathes with you, an invisible partner in your evening. Even the small things, the self-winding clock ticking, the electric kettle hissing softly, the subtle swoosh of a sprinkler outside, become meditative notes in a lullaby of innovation. Comfort is no longer about struggle. It is gentle, pervasive, and reassuring. Each invention, each mechanism quietly whispers, "Rest now. You are cared for. Life is softened here." Let the glow of lamps, the warmth of radiators, and the faint mechanical hum carry you toward stillness. Imagine yourself seated by a soft window, the city's glow pooling like liquid gold on the streets below. The Edwardians mastered their homes not with grandeur or spectacle, but with tiny, patient innovations that turned ordinary living into sanctuary. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy, let the quiet machinery of their world lull you. Let the gentle rhythm of heat, light, and air fade into a soft, eternal hum. The streets, the homes, the inventions, all become a comforting presence in your mind, a reminder that progress can be tender, deliberate, and profoundly human. Sleep now, in the warmth and glow of a world crafted for ease and gentle wonder.